Hi, hon, how you doing? And your mate screams back at you, how come you're so late? If you'd been putting up with what I've been putting up during this day, you wouldn't be so enthusiastic and excited. Now tell me where you've been. Can you understand it's got nothing to do with you? Somebody's been kicking your mate's cat all day long. Folks, we just live in a negative cat-kicking world. So how are we going to deal with a situation like that? Well, the next time somebody proceeds to chew you out and you're innocent. Now that's a very important word, innocent. And they're chewing you out, you know. Do you sit there seething and saying, wait till they hush, and now I'm going to unload on them? Instead of doing that, which is always dangerous, why don't you start thinking to yourself as the individual is chewing you out? Just start quietly thinking and patting your foot. Cat, 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 cat. It's absolutely amazing what it will do to your attitude. Instead of cat kicking, which is the way to destroy relationships, what can we do to build those winning relationships? Well, the first step to building good relationships is we need to be a good finder. A number of years ago, they did a study in New York City of 100 self-made millionaires. As an aside, 85% of them came from towns of less than 15,000 people. I just found that kind of intriguing. The interesting thing is they ranged in age from about 25 to about 80. They ranged in age from educational backgrounds of something like the 5th grade to 2 or 3 of them had their PhDs. They came from every walk of life, every occupation, these 100 self-made millionaires. There was only one thing that they had in common, and that was this. They were good finders. They knew how to see the good in any situation or in any person. Let me give you a simple example. And though it involves a tragedy, it still says a great deal for the thinking of the individual. A big old 747 flying into Honolulu, or flying out of Honolulu, the door came off. 7 people were sucked out and lost their lives. And in recounting the incident, the individual was talking about the horrible fact that had happened, the tragic loss of life. And that is a tragic loss. The individual who was receiving the information said, boy, doesn't that prove something? How tremendously well built these airplanes are. How extraordinarily skillful the crews are. Just think, with a door missing and the airplane loaded, they were able to land it with all the passengers left aboard and safe without a scratch. That's what I'm talking about. We need to find any good in any situation, and we can do that even in a tragedy. Become a good finder. I moved to Dallas a number of years ago, and I met a man who's one of the most remarkable human beings I think I've ever met. His name is Walter Haley. He devised a new way of selling life insurance. Now, this was in the days when people primarily bought ordinary life insurance. This was in the days when a $1 million producer was considered to be a pretty stable, good producer. He was working with independent grocery warehouses, supplying groceries to the independent stores all over the country. He devised an idea and a plan whereby the independent grocermen could buy their life insurance and have it attached to that huge grocery bill they were getting every week anyhow. Well, the net result is his life insurance people were selling 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 million dollars worth of life insurance a year, dramatically more than anybody else. Well, I met Walter Haley, and we just hit it off and started chatting. He said, Zig, I've got to take you and let you see one of these mammoth warehouses. Well, we walked in. I didn't know there was that much food in the world, much less under one roof. It was colossal. As we walked in the front door, Mr. Haley said, "Excuse me for a moment, Zig." He went over to the switchboard operator and he said, "You know, I just want to tell you what a delight it is for me to dial this number. You always answer so enthusiastically. I get the feeling that you're just there waiting for me to call." Well, the lady smiled very broadly and said, "Well, thank you, Mr. Haley. I really appreciate that comment." He walked on through the door leading into the major portion of the warehouse, and as we walked down one of the corridors, he said, "Excuse me, Zig, I haven't met this gentleman." We stepped into this little office. Walter Haley stuck his hand out and he said, "I'm Walter Haley. I know who you are, but we haven't met. I also know what you've been doing. Since you took over this department, we've not had the first complaint. I just want to tell you how pleased I am with the job you're doing." Well, the man was very pleased. He said, "Well, thank you, Mr. Haley. I do the very best I can." And Walter Haley said, "Well, that is excellent. Just keep it up." We walked upstairs. He walked into his office, and he walked over with me to his secretary, and he said, "Zig, I want you to shake hands with the greatest secretary who ever sat behind a desk. My wife thinks she hung the moon and can take it down whenever she wants to. So I'm asking you right now, please don't do it. I love the moon right where it is." Well, the secretary obviously beamed broadly and said, "Well, Mr. Haley, you sure are kind to say that, and I obviously love your wife and thank her for me too." We walked on into his private office, and there sat one of his men. And Walter Haley said to me, "Zig, shake hands with one of the greatest life insurance men to ever put on a pair of shoes." And the salesman said, "Oh, Walter, you're always saying things like that." And of course, since they're true, I obviously love hearing you say those things. Keep it up. The whole trip took about 5 minutes. But I'm here to tell you that there were 4 people who were dramatically affected that day. Now let me share something with you which is critically important, and that's this. Walter Haley is a very sincere man. He is a very observant man. The compliments were from his heart. He was not making small talk. He was communicating what he felt. When you do things like that, I can absolutely guarantee people will respond. And they will respond in a very positive way. When you talk about building relationships, there is a magnificent way to do it. It's absolutely true. You can have everything in life you want if you will just help enough other people get what they want. Now, what did Walter Haley want? He really wants those people to be friendly and loyal and more productive. But had he been a conniver, had he said, "Well, now I can manipulate them by bragging on them, and then they will be more productive." Let me tell you something. I'm talking about a philosophy. If you use it as a tactic, I can absolutely guarantee you it will not work. If you think you can do something for somebody else and then later they'll do something for you, that is ugly. That is manipulative. It absolutely will not work. But if you look for the good and find the good and compliment the good because it is true and because you're sincere, you will build a tremendous amount of loyalty. It's the philosophy. It is not a tactic. Be a good finder. One evening I was speaking at an insurance company banquet, and I was seated at the head table between 2 of the vice presidents. And as we sat there, the meal started. The lady brought us out our salads, and as she set it down, I simply said, "Thank you." The other 2 gentlemen on either side said nothing. In a few minutes, she brought coffee. Again, I said, "Thank you very much." The 2 gentlemen on either side said nothing. Soon she brought the entree, and I just said,